Welcome to Elevate and Thrive, where your mindset evolves. Average does not attack your dreams with noise. It does not show up like a storm and rip ambition out of your hands. It moves quietly, it whispers, it negotiates. It convinces you that small compromises are harmless. It tells you that skipping one opportunity won't matter, that delaying one goal won't hurt, that lowering the standard just this once is reasonable. And before you realize what has happened, the fire that once burned inside you is no longer ablaze. It is a flicker. If this is helping you shift your mindset, subscribe to Elevate and Thrive. This channel is for your growth. Dreams rarely die from one massive failure. They die from accumulated comfort, from repeated decisions to choose what is easy over what is necessary. You don't wake up one day and decide to abandon your purpose. You slowly drift away from it. You stop pushing as hard. You stop demanding excellence from yourself. You stop taking risks. You start saying, "This is good enough." That phrase, "good enough," has ended more dreams than defeat ever could. Average is seductive because it feels responsible, it feels mature, it feels stable. You convince yourself you are being practical. You say you are protecting yourself from disappointment. You say you are managing expectations. But in reality, you are shrinking your vision to fit your fear. The erosion happens in small moments. When you choose scrolling over studying, when you choose comfort over discipline, when you choose silence instead of speaking up, none of those decisions feel life-changing. They feel insignificant. But success and failure are both built in the insignificant. The person you become is shaped by daily standards. When you repeatedly accept average effort, average preparation, average thinking, you are building an average identity, and identity is powerful. Once you start seeing yourself as someone who does just enough, you begin to live up to that image. You stop expecting greatness from yourself because you have trained your mind to settle. Average slowly redefines what you believe you deserve. At first, you dream big. You want impact. You want excellence. You want to build something meaningful. Then you experience resistance, rejection, criticism, setbacks. Instead of increasing your resilience, you decrease your expectations. Instead of sharpening your commitment, you soften your ambition. You tell yourself it is safer not to care so much. That is how dreams fade. Not through destruction, but through indifference. When you repeatedly choose the easier path, your tolerance for discomfort shrinks. Things that once felt challenging but exciting begin to feel overwhelming. You lose the hunger that once pushed you. You stop competing with your potential and start competing with the bare minimum. Average does not feel dangerous in the moment because it removes pressure, it lowers the stakes, it gives you permission to relax. But ambition requires tension, growth requires stretch, progress requires discomfort. When you remove those elements, you remove the environment where dreams survive. There is also a psychological cost. Every time you know you could have done more and chose not to, you weaken trust in yourself. Self-respect erodes quietly. You may still function, you may still earn, you may still appear successful. But deep inside, you know when you are holding back, you know when you are playing smaller than your capacity. That internal awareness creates a silent frustration. You begin to envy people who pursue boldly. You feel irritated when you see others achieving what you once aimed for, not because you dislike them, but because they represent the version of you that you abandoned. Average is dangerous because it normalizes unrealized potential. It convinces you that mediocrity is common and therefore acceptable. It surrounds you with others who also settled, reinforcing the idea that striving is extreme. Over time, excellence begins to look unrealistic instead of necessary. But the most damaging part is this: the longer you stay average, the harder it becomes to remember how ambitious you once were. Your standards adapt downward. Your dreams adjust to fit your environment. What once felt possible now feels unrealistic. What once felt exciting now feels impractical. And that is how the theft is completed. Not with force, not with drama, but with gradual compromise, with repeated surrender to comfort, with consistent acceptance of less than you are capable of giving. Average never announces that it is stealing your dreams. It simply asks you every single day to try a little less. And if you keep saying yes, eventually there is nothing left to steal. Safety feels responsible, it feels mature, it feels like the smart choice. You tell yourself you are being careful. You tell yourself you are avoiding unnecessary risk. You convince yourself that protecting what you have is wiser than chasing what you want. In the moment it feels disciplined, it feels controlled, it feels adult. But safety has a hidden cost. When you choose safety over growth, you avoid embarrassment, you avoid public failure, you avoid criticism, you avoid the uncomfortable spotlight that comes with trying something bold. Nobody laughs at you for staying where you are. Nobody questions you for playing it small. You blend into the crowd and that invisibility feels secure. Yet what you gain in protection, you lose in possibility. There are two types of pain in life, the pain of failure and the pain of regret. Failure is sharp but temporary. Regret is quiet but permanent. When you take a risk and fall short, it stings. Your pride takes a hit. Your confidence shakes. People may talk, you may doubt yourself, but that pain fades because it is tied to action. You can learn from it, you can adjust, you can grow stronger. Regret is different. Regret comes from an action, from the business you never started, the opportunity you never applied for, the words you never said, the version of yourself you never allowed to exist. Regret does not shout, it whispers at night. It shows up in quiet moments when you realize you settled not because you had to, but because you were afraid. Choosing safety protects your ego today, but risks your fulfillment tomorrow. You accept the job that pays the bills but drains your spirit because it feels secure. You stay in environments that limit you because they are familiar. You silence your ambition because you fear standing alone. Each decision feels logical, each decision seems reasonable, but stacked over years, they create a life that feels smaller than your capacity. Safety becomes a cage disguised as comfort. At first, you feel relieved. There is no pressure to prove yourself, no risk of humiliation, no exposure, but slowly that relief turns into restlessness. You start noticing the gap between who you are and who you could have been. You watch others take leaps you once considered. You see people building, creating, risking, expanding, and something inside you tightens. Not jealousy, recognition. You recognize that you once had that same fire, that same hunger, that same willingness to try, but you negotiated it away in exchange for certainty. The problem with certainty is that it rarely produces growth. Growth requires uncertainty. It requires stepping into situations where outcomes are not guaranteed. Safety demands predictability. Dreams demand courage. When you repeatedly choose safety, you condition your mind to avoid discomfort. You lower your tolerance for risk. Even small challenges begin to feel overwhelming because you have trained yourself to stay within controlled boundaries. Over time, your world shrinks to what feels manageable instead of expanding toward what feels meaningful. You may achieve stability, you may build a routine, you may even appear successful on the outside. But internally, something feels unfinished. There is a quiet dissatisfaction that no amount of security can eliminate. Because deep down, you know you traded possibility for protection. The tragedy is not that you failed. The tragedy is that you never tested your limits. Failure carries lessons, it builds resilience, it sharpens character. Regret carries questions, endless questions. What if I had tried? What if I had pushed harder? What if I had believed in myself? Those questions do not disappear with time. They grow heavier. Safety keeps you comfortable in the present, but can make the future feel hollow. Years from now, you will not regret the times you were bold and fell short. You will remember them as proof that you were alive, that you fought, that you stretched beyond fear. But you will feel the weight of the moments you chose silence over courage, the moments you convinced yourself to stay small, the times you told your dreams to wait until it was the right time. There is rarely a perfect time. There is only a decision. When you choose safety as a default, you make that decision for comfort instead of growth. You protect your image, but risk your identity. You secure the present, but gamble with your potential. And one day, when you measure your life not by how safe it was, but by how fully you lived it, you will realize that the greatest risk was never failure. The greatest risk was allowing fear to define the boundaries of your ambition. Potential is not a compliment. It is not something you hang on the wall like a certificate. It is not praise meant to make you feel good. Potential is a responsibility. It is evidence that more is possible through you. And once you recognize that you cannot pretend you do not know. When you are aware that you can do more, settling becomes a conscious decision. Ignorance disappears. You see the gap between your current effort and your true capacity. You feel it in moments when you know you could push harder but choose not to. You hear it in your own excuses. You sense it when you compare what you are producing to what you are capable of producing. That awareness creates accountability. Potential means you have been given ability, intelligence, creativity, strength, or resilience that exceeds your current output. That is not random, it is not accidental, it is an opportunity. But opportunity ignored becomes regret. When you repeatedly underuse your gifts, you are not being humble. You are being careless. There is something deeply unsettling about knowing you are built for more, but repeatedly accepting less. It creates internal tension. On the outside, life may look fine. You may be functioning. You may be earning. You may be stable. But internally, you feel the friction between who you are and who you could be. That friction is the signal of unused potential. Many people treat potential like a safety net. They say, I could do more if I wanted to. They keep their gifts in reserve as a form of psychological comfort. As long as they are not fully trying, they can blame the lack of effort instead of confronting their limits. But that mindset slowly erodes confidence. Because deep down, you know when you are holding back. Each time you avoid stretching yourself, you reinforce a weaker version of your identity. You begin to identify not as someone capable of greatness, but as someone who almost tries, someone who almost commits, someone who almost steps up. Potential demands expression, it demands discipline, it demands action. Talent without effort is waste. Intelligence without application is stagnation. Vision without execution is illusion. If you know you have leadership ability, but never step forward, that is not modesty. If you know you have creative ideas, but never build them, that is not caution. If you know you have strength, but never test it, that is not safety, it is neglect. There is a cost to neglecting your own capacity. Over time, self-respect diminishes, confidence weakens. Not because you are incapable, but because you are aware that you are not showing up fully. Self-trust is built when your actions align with your potential. When you repeatedly choose comfort over growth, that alignment breaks. The younger version of you believed in something bigger. That belief was not foolish. It was intuitive recognition of potential. Children and teenagers often dream boldly because they sense possibility without yet being conditioned by fear. As life progresses, responsibilities increase, disappointments accumulate, and ambition becomes more restrained. But the capacity does not disappear, it waits. The tragedy is not lacking potential. The tragedy is having it and refusing to honor it. Potential does not guarantee success, it guarantees opportunity. But opportunity must be pursued, it must be trained, it must be refined through effort. Raw ability means nothing without commitment. Every skill can be sharpened, every gift can be strengthened. But only if you take responsibility for developing it. When you underperform relative to your ability, you feel it. You feel it when you finish the day knowing you could have given more focus. You feel it when you avoid challenges that would force growth. You feel it when you rationalize mediocrity even though excellence was within reach. Responsibility means you stop blaming circumstances for underusing your gifts. It means you stop minimizing your capability to fit your environment. It means you stop pretending that average effort is acceptable when you know extraordinary effort is possible. There is power in deciding that your potential deserves discipline, that your gifts deserve structure, that your vision deserves execution. When you make that shift, you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop asking whether you feel like showing up. You show up because you understand that what you have been given carries obligation. You owe it to yourself to test your limits. You owe it to your future to maximize your strengths. You owe it to your past sacrifices not to waste what was built through struggle. Potential is not there to impress others. It is there to be used. And once you recognize it, ignoring it becomes a choice you can no longer justify. Comfort is crowded because it asks nothing difficult from you. It requires no boldness, no exposure, no risk of embarrassment. It offers belonging without effort. When you choose comfort, you rarely stand alone. You join the majority. You blend into a system where expectations are low and accountability is minimal. You move at a pace that does not threaten anyone. You adopt standards that do not intimidate anyone. You live in a way that feels acceptable to almost everyone. That is why it is crowded. Most people do not fail because they lack ability. They fail because they avoid discomfort. They want success, but they do not want uncertainty. They want recognition, but they do not want rejection. They want growth, but they do not want the pressure that growth demands. So they choose what feels manageable instead of what is meaningful. Comfort tells you to stay where you are competent instead of stepping into spaces where you are challenged. It tells you to protect your image instead of building your strength. It convinces you that avoiding mistakes is smarter than risking progress. And when millions of people accept that logic, mediocrity becomes normal. Look around at any competitive field. The number of people who talk about goals is massive. The number of people who consistently act on them is small. The number of people who persist after setbacks is even smaller. Courage filters the crowd. Discipline separates the committed from the curious. Comfort keeps the crowd intact. Courage thins it. Courage is rare because it demands that you move without guarantees. It requires you to act before you feel fully ready. It forces you to risk your reputation, your certainty, and sometimes your relationships. When you choose courage, you step away from the approval of those who prefer stability over ambition. You may be misunderstood. You may be doubted. You may even be criticized by people who once felt comfortable around you. Growth changes dynamics. When you raise your standards, you expose lower standards around you. That makes people uncomfortable. It is easier to stay average with the group than to rise alone. Comfort offers acceptance. Courage often requires isolation. That isolation is why many retreat. The gym is crowded in January but empty in March. Business ideas are discussed constantly but rarely executed. Books are purchased but not finished. Plans are made but not sustained. The initial excitement is common. The sustained discipline is rare. Courage is not loud motivation. It is quiet consistency when enthusiasm fades. Choosing courage means accepting that discomfort is not a signal to stop. It is a sign that you are stretching. Most people interpret discomfort as danger. They retreat to familiarity. They lower goals to match current habits. They reduce ambition to avoid pressure. That is why extraordinary results are uncommon, not because they are impossible, but because the path to them requires behavior most are unwilling to maintain. Courage demands ownership. It removes excuses. It forces you to confront your weaknesses instead of blaming circumstances. It makes you responsible for your standards. When you operate at that level, you cannot hide behind the crowd. You cannot justify underperformance by pointing to what everyone else is doing. The crowd provides comfort through comparison. If everyone around you is doing just enough feels acceptable. But when you decide to pursue excellence, your reference point changes. You measure yourself against potential, not popularity. That shift is uncomfortable. It means waking up earlier when others sleep. It means preparing longer when others relax. It means saying no to distractions others indulge in. It means risking failure in arenas where others never enter. Courage exposes you to loss, but it also exposes you to growth. The rare individual understands that temporary discomfort is the price of long-term distinction. They accept being outnumbered. They accept the awkward phase of learning. They accept looking inexperienced while building mastery. They accept that progress is often invisible before it becomes undeniable. Comfort offers immediate relief. Courage offers delayed reward. Most people choose immediate relief. They choose the easier conversation. The safer decision, the smaller goal. They protect today's feelings at the expense of tomorrow's fulfillment. Over time, that pattern compounds. The gap between the crowd and the courageous widens. Being rare is not about talent. It is about tolerance. Tolerance for uncertainty. Tolerance for criticism. Tolerance for sustained effort. When you build that tolerance, you separate yourself naturally, not because you are superior, but because you are willing. Comfort will always have more participants, courage will always have fewer, and that difference is precisely why one leads to average outcomes and the other leads to extraordinary impact. Every day you choose average. You are not just making a small decision, you are reinforcing a standard. You are teaching yourself what is acceptable. Standards are not declared once, they are demonstrated daily. What you tolerate becomes your baseline. What you repeat becomes your identity. The first time you lower your effort, it feels temporary. You tell yourself it is just for today. You justify it with fatigue, stress, or convenience. It feels harmless. But repetition changes meaning. When temporary becomes habitual, it stops being an exception and starts being a rule. You are always training your mind. When you choose to stop early instead of finishing strong, you are training yourself to quit when discomfort appears. When you choose distraction over discipline, you are training your focus to weaken. When you accept average performance from yourself, you are signaling that excellence is optional. The mind adapts quickly, it adjusts to the level of demand you place on it. If you demand little, it gives little. If you require more, it expands. But expansion only happens when pressure exists. Remove the pressure and growth slows. Lower the standard and performance follows. You do not wake up one morning and decide to have small expectations. That shift happens gradually. It begins with phrases like, "This is good enough." It continues with, "No one else is doing more." It evolves into, "At least I tried." Each statement lowers the bar slightly. Each compromise reshapes your internal definition of effort. Over time, average stops feeling average. It feels normal. That normalization is powerful. Once mediocrity feels standard, excellence begins to look extreme. High discipline looks obsessive. High ambition looks unrealistic. Strong focus looks unnecessary. Your perception adjusts to protect your comfort. You defend the very habits that are limiting you. Identity is built on repeated behavior. If you consistently show up late, you become someone who is late. If you consistently cut corners, you become someone who cuts corners. If you consistently give partial effort, you become someone who believes partial effort is enough. The shift is subtle but permanent unless interrupted. Every time you choose average, you reinforce a self-image. You may still have big dreams in your head, but your actions are voting for a smaller version of yourself. Actions are louder than intentions. The identity you live is shaped by what you do, not what you imagine. Standards influence outcomes. If you expect little from yourself, you prepare less. If you prepare less, your results shrink. When results shrink, confidence drops. When confidence drops, expectations lower further. This cycle feeds itself. Average effort produces average results, which justify average effort. Breaking that cycle requires awareness. You must recognize that small decisions compound. The extra hour of preparation matters. The extra repetition matters. The extra moment of discipline matters. Individually, they seem minor. Collectively, they shape trajectory. Your tolerance determines your ceiling. If you tolerate inconsistency, inconsistency defines you. If you tolerate procrastination, procrastination governs you. If you tolerate excuses, excuses become part of your personality. What you allow continues. Many people think identity is fixed. It is not. It is reinforced. You become what you repeatedly practice. When you practice showing up fully, discipline strengthens. When you practice pushing beyond comfort, resilience grows. When you practice cutting effort short, limitation deepens. Average becomes dangerous because it feels stable. There is no immediate crisis. There's no dramatic failure. You are functioning, you are surviving, but survival is not expansion. Stability without growth becomes stagnation. Stagnation disguised as safety convinces you that nothing is wrong. Meanwhile, potential remains underused. Skills remain undeveloped. Capacity remains stretched only halfway. You might still achieve modest success. But modest success built on lowered standards rarely satisfies someone who knows they are capable of more. The mind adapts downward as easily as it adapts upward. If you consistently challenge yourself, your threshold for difficulty rises. Tasks that once felt hard become manageable. If you consistently avoid challenge, your threshold shrinks. Tasks that were once manageable begin to feel overwhelming. You are always adjusting your baseline. Every day presents a choice between reinforcing discipline or reinforcing comfort, between strengthening focus or strengthening distraction, between building a resilient identity or building a fragile one. The choice rarely feels dramatic, it feels ordinary. But ordinary decisions accumulate. When you repeatedly choose average, you are constructing a life that reflects that choice, not because fate decided it, but because standards determined it. And standards are not forced upon you, they are accepted by you. What you accept today becomes what you expect tomorrow, and what you expect tomorrow shapes who you believe you are allowed to become. The first keynote centers on courage as a deliberate choice rather than an accidental trait. It presents courage not as the absence of fear, but as the decision to move forward despite it. Fear is acknowledged as natural, even necessary, because it signals that something meaningful is at stake. The speech emphasizes that progress has always demanded individuals willing to step beyond comfort, challenge norms, and confront uncertainty. Courage becomes the foundation for transformation. Without it, ideas remain silent and potential remains buried. The message insists that every defining moment in history was shaped by people who refused to surrender to doubt. This keynote calls on listeners to recognize that bravery is not reserved for heroes in textbooks, but is available to anyone willing to act with conviction in everyday life. The second keynote focuses on unity as a force multiplier. It argues that division weakens even the strongest communities, while solidarity amplifies strength. The speech highlights how collective effort outperforms isolated ambition, reminding the audience that shared purpose creates resilience. Differences in background, belief, and experience are framed not as obstacles but as assets that enrich perspective. Unity is portrayed as intentional collaboration built on respect and empathy rather than uniformity. When people align around a common goal, they generate momentum that cannot be easily stopped. The keynote underscores that real progress is rarely individual. It is the product of many hands working in harmony, bound by trust and mutual responsibility. The third keynote addresses resilience in the face of adversity, confronts hardship directly, refusing to romanticize struggle while acknowledging its inevitability. The speech frames setbacks as teachers rather than verdicts, arguing that failure refines character and sharpens determination. Resilience is depicted as endurance with purpose, the ability to absorb impact without losing direction. The audience is reminded that storms do not last forever, but strength developed during them does. Instead of asking why challenges occur, the keynote encourages asking what they can reveal. Hardship becomes a crucible that tests commitment and reveals inner strength. Through persistence and discipline, obstacles are transformed into stepping stones. The fourth keynote revolves around vision and clarity of purpose. It asserts that action without direction leads to exhaustion, while vision provides energy and focus. The speech challenges listeners to define what they truly stand for and what future they are willing to build. A clear vision acts as a compass during uncertainty, preventing distraction and drift. It is described as both personal and collective, requiring imagination and responsibility. The keynote stresses that bold dreams demand disciplined execution. Inspiration must be paired with strategy. Vision shapes decisions, priorities, and sacrifices. When purpose is clear, hesitation fades because the destination is worth the journey. The fifth keynote highlights responsibility as the price of influence. It insists that leadership is not about status but service. Every individual, regardless of position, carries the power to impact others through choices and behavior. The speech rejects the notion of passive spectatorship, arguing that silence in critical moments is itself a decision. Responsibility means owning mistakes, correcting course, and remaining accountable to shared values. It demands integrity when no one is watching and consistency when pressure rises. The keynote portrays responsibility as empowering rather than burdensome. It affirms that agency belongs to those willing to accept ownership of their actions. By taking responsibility, individuals reclaim control over outcomes instead of blaming circumstances. The sixth keynote calls for decisive action rooted in hope. It warns against complacency and endless preparation that never transitions into movement. The speech asserts that change change requires momentum, and momentum begins with a single step. Hope is framed not as wishful thinking, but as disciplined belief supported by effort. Action converts ideals into measurable progress. The audience is urged to replace hesitation with initiative, recognizing that waiting for perfect conditions guarantees stagnation. Even small steps accumulate into significant transformation when taken consistently. The keynote emphasizes urgency without panic, determination without recklessness. It argues that the future is shaped not by intention alone, but by sustained commitment. Through purposeful action, the distance between aspiration and achievement narrows. Elevate your thinking, thrive in your life,